Hello and welcome back to Football 301. I'm your host, Nate Tice. We are going to be reviewing Week 7. We're going to be buying and selling some trends, some surprises, some storylines from the NFL season so far. Some that are interesting, some that are pretty standard fare. What's being the conversation right now in football? Some maybe a little more deep dive, a little more niche, some positive, some negative, just all over the place. But to help me do that, as always on Tuesday, is Mr. Matt Harmon himself. Mr. Matt Harmon, BVB. I still like introducing you as that because I just like the little tagline. It's like you're a doctor, you know? Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Talk about something you're Dr. Receiver. You're Mr. Receiver. Yeah, that's perfect. That's it. That's what it stands for. Some way we're going to work out that acronym. But how are you doing today, Matt? Thanks for joining me.
I'm doing good, Nate. Yeah, I could definitely use a whole team. You know, doctors are great. Shout out to all the doctors out there. But, you know, you got nurses, you got, physician's assistants, the whole thing. You got the NP, you got the office folks. Like I could definitely use a whole team around me as we're trying to diagnose some of these receiver situations and things across the NFL. But hey, man, it's good to be talking to you. Like we're right kind of in the midpoint of the regular season, and I definitely feel. We're going to talk about it. I feel like a lot of things are starting to crystallize, and I'm also ready for that to just also look completely wrong in 3, 4, 5 weeks. Because my buddy Sigmund Bloom, is like basically been a mentor to me throughout my time, especially starting out. He always used to say, like, you can be right and wrong about a player, a team, a situation, but over the course of just one season. And so that really always comes clear here in the midpoint to me.
It does, and some things I'm like. I watch, like maybe even like the Lions, who we'll talk about it later, but I'm watching them and I'm like, oh yeah, this is exactly what I pictured. Like why there's no, like, it's no new or interesting thoughts on it. Hopefully a couple later, but still it's one of those things watching them that I'm like, oh yeah, this is crystallizing, but it's exactly what I pictured beforehand. But even like the Ravens offense, the run game, I'm like, I'm not surprised. I'm a little surprised, but I should be surprised when you put Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson in the same backfield. And this is what it looks like. And this is the offensive production. But sometimes you need to see it a little bit before you kind of like, yeah, I'm ready to anoint that. Or you see some flags that you planted slowly falling down, like the reverse of Iwo Jima. Yeah, that's just not, there's a couple takes that I have about that. But starting off on what we're buying and selling is a quarterback change that happened in Pittsburgh that we all got to see on Sunday night. That is Russell Wilson is now the starting quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers. They picked up the W against the other team in New York, the Jets, that just seem to be in the headlines every single week for good or for better or for worse. But Russell Wilson, this is our first buy or sell of trends of the season or storylines of the season. Matt, the line is Russell Wilson unlocks the Steelers offense. Are you buying or selling that?
Yeah, it's kind of so nice. I don't think we have a Jets storyline throughout the course of the show. It feels nice to not be able to address that. So
I checked the box though. We both wore green. Are you wearing green?
True.
I think that's green.
This is like this is a darker, more mature green than whatever the Jets. Talk about it, not a mature team. This is a mature green. That is not a mature team. So let's never talk about the Jets.
That was it. We checked the box. We're good.
We did it. we did it. But yeah, against that team in New York, I thought it was a good performance from Russell. Can I hedge on this one and say I'm buying it for now? I do think the one area that really stood out to me, and you saw it watching the game, and definitely the stats afterwards bore this out, where Russell was an upgrade for the Steelers quarterback position, was on just those play action shot concepts that, you and I as sort of the maybe few appreciators of Arthur Smith's offense, like these are the core
Artie
concepts.
Bros.
The Artie Bros. Yeah. We're a small select group of freaks. Me and you are in that group there. Those are sort of the core concepts of this offense. And definitely the way Russell did it was very different than the old Tennessee Titans offenses with these in-breaking shots on play action, to A.J. Brown from Ryan Tannehill. But from Next Gen Stats, the Russell Wilson was 8 of 9 for 150 yards on play action against that New York team. That 150 yards was the most by yards on play action by any Steelers quarterback since 2016, which I kind of thought was a little bit absurd. Because that's grouping.
But Ben never liked to do play action.
Exactly.
Roethlisberger.
Yeah.
So yeah, you want everything spread and you want the nickel and dime it all. Yeah. So it actually makes a little more sense.
Yeah. Once you start to flesh it out, like it does make sense, because Ben was he was like the originator of I want to be in the gun and I'm never turning my back to the defense, especially later in his career. He definitely didn't want to do any of that stuff. And then obviously they've just had a murderer's row of really, really bad quarterbacks. Fields had a 5.2 YPA on play action from weeks 1 to 6. So definitely an upgrade there. And I know that people's first response is, yeah, we'll go actually watch some of those plays. It's mostly just Russell Wilson throwing fades and go routes and contested situations to George Pickens that Pickens bailed him out. I'm like, yeah, but that's the point. Like that's what you, well, yeah, that's the offense. And also that's George Pickens. Like that's what you should be doing with him. And I think Fields and Pickens had an okay connection because Fields is also good on deep outside the numbers throws. That's where he wants to work. That is where Pickens is best. But at the same time, I think Russell throws a little bit better of a go route and a fade ball, which does just suit George Pickens well. So is it going to be, am I buying it over the course of the season? I don't know. But for now, I do think he didn't unlock the offense, but made it a little bit better in a pass game.
Yeah, it felt a little more streamlined. The operation did. I thought that's where the improvement was. Like Russ, you definitely felt some more veteranness out of that offense. As Fields just has moments every game where it's just operation errors. It seems like someone didn't get the play call right. He's messed up on the cadence. He's thinking too much. And, I think he wants to put so much on his plate, but right now Justin Fields has shown throughout his career, he can't handle a lot on his plate. Russ, at times can ask for too much and coaches are like, all right, let's give it to him. And then it turns out it's like, oh, maybe there's a limit here. But right now when I watched that game, it did feel just a little more cohesive. It felt like guys were coming off the ball at the right time. It felt like there was no misalignments. There was no just kind of those mental botches. There was, execution botches, which is different than operation botches, pre-snap stuff. So I would say first and foremost, that's where I saw improvement from this team. Does that help? Because it's a team that needs to be, above board on every play. They can't get behind the sticks because of just their lack of explosiveness. That does matter for this team more than others that can't create most of the explosive plays. But like you said, I thought Fields would maybe pepper Pickens a little bit more and maybe give him more chances. He did. And Russ at least is doing that. Maybe throwing him shorter because I think Russ's arm strength has dropped about 10, 15%.
Yeah, for sure.
He kind of maybe actually works in his favor because they get the play actions. They let Pickens adjust for it. So maybe that does help it. I'm with you. I'm glad you kind of really strong from both of us on the first one. I'm hedging on the buy or sell here. I buy some parts of it, but this offense still needs an explosive play element. Fields at least provided that with his legs. And I thought they would just include that more as the season went along. So that's why this still feels strange to me. Maybe they just become more cohesive, a better add layers to the offense now that they know this is what it is going forward. Hey, Justin, you come in as the wildcat quarterback type in the red zone, and it's just a package, select plays. Maybe that's what they include. But I don't know. I'm not I don't have a strong feeling on this. I want to see a little bit more of it. Maybe not against the Jets defense is still pretty good, but still just that team's just chaotic. So yeah, I don't know. I'm indifferent. I'm holding, I guess. I'm not buying or selling, just holding. All right, moving on to a different quarterback change, but this was going back to the starter because he was now healthy. That I tried to segue there. That didn't work, but whatever. Anthony Richardson. Is there any argument for sitting Anthony Richardson as they kind of got into a rock fight against the Dolphins this past week on his return from a hip pointer, I believe was the actual injury. The Colts started Joe Flacco for a couple of weeks, had some good performances under Joe Flacco for a couple of weeks. There's some murmurs right now that maybe that's the better way for the Colts going forward the rest of the year. Are you buying or selling sitting Richardson and going with Flacco?
Yeah, I'm really interested to talk about Richardson with you because I find this one, a bit of a tough nut to crack right now in some ways. I will say, is there an argument for sitting him? I'm completely selling on that idea. I don't buy into that at all. Do I maybe buy that the offense might, to go back to what we just talked about, the Steelers might feel a little more veteran-y, might feel a little, more smooth down to down with Flacco there.
It's very similar. It's a good point. It really is.
Yeah, and I think Flacco unlocks some of these receivers, and I am trying to put my what I'd love to see from these receivers aside for a second, because I think this room is really good. I love Josh Downs. Pittman's a rock solid vet. We're also kind of like Alec Pierce, stockholders. Maybe
his role's good. Good role for him now. Yes,
his role's good. Don't ask him to do anything else.
Nothing else.
Just this.
Just this.
Just this. And then I think Adonai Mitchell, as the season goes on, the separation's there and things like that for him. I think the rest of it can sort of come together. It's a really good room. I'm trying to put that aside and like any sort of feelings about, what I'd like to see from like a fantasy perspective aside on this. Because I think Flacco under center, all those guys become a lot more interesting from a production standpoint. It's a good room. And I'd like to see good wide receiver rooms unlocked right now. But at the same time, I also know that we're a microwave society. We want like instant results, but this was always going to be a developmental season for Anthony Richardson because he's still a guy that doesn't have a lot of experience and basically missed almost all of last year. It would make no sense. Even Flacco, I think it was on Chris Long's show, said like, Richardson needs to be out there. Anthony needs to play the games. Like Flacco's not out there even, championing the idea that he needs to start. I'm sure in his heart of hearts, he knows like, I could probably be better right now today than Anthony Richardson, but he knows that's not the point. So I'm selling on the idea that it makes sense to sit Richardson and try to win this year. But I'm just curious from your perspective, Nate, because I have a feeling you're probably going to not love the idea of sitting Anthony Richardson either. But I'm just curious from your perspective, like what is missing with Richardson right now? It does feel like watching the games that they don't have as many easy buttons for him as you'd kind of like, but is he not taking the buttons when they're there? Or, Steichen, who I think says all the right things after the games, like, I need to do a better job. This is not just Richardson. I need to do a better job of getting guys open and things like that. Where is the sort of disconnect between what the offense looks like with Flacco and what it looks like with Richardson?
No, good. So first off, I'm with you. I'm selling the argument to sit him is that this is a guy that needs reps. He needs to get out of his own way at times, like the fumble in the red zone he had on the first drive. After he has a nice, easy going drive where he's not doing anything too difficult on it. And then he tries to do a little too much. And to me, that's a guy that needs game reps. So everything Flacco said, I totally agree with, is that he needs game reps. Practice reps are one thing. Game reps are a whole nother thing. And why I say that is that there's sometimes that I can tell he gets excited that he's about to make the right read. Like he's like, oh, you try to disguise this. And he gets really bouncy. And then his timing gets off. Then he feels like he has to chuck the throw and throw it 75 miles an hour when you can throw it like still hard, but just a little bit more touch on it. And again, that comes with game experience. When going like, okay, the last time I got punished for this happened. So now I have to do this. That's where growth comes from, is those mistakes and everything. He just needs to calm down like that. That's it. There's plays. He had an RPO that they ran. He pulls it, makes the correct read on it. But then he bounces like into the protection, into the left tackle and left guard. Like, just chill, just pull it and throw. Like he's so excited that he got there and he bounces on over there. To me, again, that's a guy that is, I got the question right. And I'm going to sprint to the teacher and show that I got the question right. But really it's more like, okay, you got the question right. Now you need to execute. So his mind has to catch up with his feet and his arm. But I will say, watching that game back in all 22, I actually was I thought he did better than I originally thought on TV copy. That he didn't make some dummy mistakes that he has in the past. He did get away with one where he ends up turning out to be a great throw where he plops over a flat defender. But it was great because he realized, oh shoot, I'm a little wrong with this read. I'm just, instead of gunning it in there, he's like, I'm going to throw a touch. Growth. You need growth, because I think in the past on that mistake, he would just lined it right at the flat defender. He made a couple throws that are like 4 guys in the league could make right now, which is again, what you're honing in on with Anthony Richardson. Make those more common and take out all the crappiness, just the ineffective play. And really this game popped open when the Colts ran Anthony Richardson, which is, again, the element of his game that's so exciting, is that he can be an upper echelon runner. So I just go that this guy, as Richardson, as he gets more reps, the feet will calm down. It does remind me they are not the same player at all. And I know this is the common comparison. Same thing with Josh Allen early in his career, was that he was so bouncy. His feet were going every which way. That comes with time. Calm the feet down. Okay, I can throw this a little bit later and make sure it's all right, as opposed to like, oh, I'm going to try and anticipate this and then throw it 70 miles an hour. Just those two things merging. This guy's so young. He has like less than 1,000 dropbacks combined in college and NFL. He just needs more time. And I still think that the stuff that we have seen is just the stuff that you chase. And I think that's why they're excited about him. I also think maybe saying, making it easier on the guys. I think some of that, from Steichen, was that some of the RPOs work, but some of the RPOs I think was making Richardson have too much handle on every single play. Those,
Yeah,
those make it easier on the quarterback. They are quote unquote training wheels, but also the quarterback has to make a decision every single play and for a guy that you're going, his decision making is 60-40 right now. That's a little scary. But again, with more reps, that becomes better. So he needs to make mistakes. The Colts, I'm excited about where the Colts are going, but they weren't winning the Super Bowl this year. I hate to break it to Indianapolis fans. The ones singing, "This is our team. We bleed blue." Have you seen that meme? That was actually pretty funny. So, no, but it's an interesting team, a team I'm optimistic about. I thought the second half of the year is where we see the growth because Richardson, again, just needs more reps. So selling the argument for sitting him, and sorry, fans, you just have to deal with some of the mistakes that he makes because I think the good plays are what you want. That's the top 5 type play, quarterback play. That is what you're chasing with him. So just strip out the fat as it gets along. It's a long-winded way to say it's more of the same.
It's a shame they have a Week 14 bye, and the fact that they go now. They get Houston, in Minnesota, Buffalo, in New York to face the Jets the next 4 weeks. So definitely a tough group of defenses. So I do think it just has to be viewed as a sink or swim season for Richardson. And even if I don't think he's totally sinking, even though the passing metrics are obviously horrible. But he certainly needs the reps for sure. So yeah, I feel a little bit of patience with Richardson is good. And yeah, it's interesting your point about the RPOs because I hadn't really considered that because they were so RPO heavy with Gardner Minshew last year. And that's why it just Michael Pittman on these little inbreakers over and over and over and over again, but they clearly want more from Richardson. And in a way, I feel like once you get Jonathan Taylor back and maybe that run game is a little bit more consistent and successful, I like that idea of, some of the more old school, like Gary Kubiak, like the Shanahan tree coaches, they would talk about it as we want to do a handoff, every now and again, just to get the quarterback's brain, like a breather, yes. I get why, we criticize some coaches. I think the Texans are leaning into it maybe too much sometimes with the early down runs and things like that but I think Stroud's at a point where maybe he could handle more. With Richardson, it's let's just let this guy run some normal plays where he's not, having to make decisions all of the time. Because that's the one area I would say I'm not concerned, but has been a little bit less than I expected. I thought Richardson last year was such a good processor, even if some of the passing was wonky. This year, I feel like the passing has remained wonky and sort of that processing. And as you mentioned, he gets a little jittery and stuff like that. I feel like he's been a little more amped up this year than maybe he was just very briefly last year. But hopefully some of that can just go away when the expectations sort of get dialed down.
Amped up is a great way to put it. That's what it is. It's like he seems too amped up, and you don't, just because you can throw it probably harder than anybody in the league doesn't mean you have to every time you throw it. Matthew Stafford has talked about this. Josh Allen has talked about this. All these guys with the crazy, insane arms have learned that you have to take off some RPMs because, some miles per hour, because that's, those guys can't always catch those. And sometimes if you're early, that screws up the timing too. It's kind of a double-edged sword maybe it's because I have a popcorn arm that I'm like, yeah, see? It's not always great that you can throw it so hard.
It's a curse. You're a cross to bear.
Oh man, just throwing it that hard and that perfect with those perfect spirals, man, that must suck. And really, I know Allen's going to be the comparison, but that's how aggressive he is, how many downfield throws he makes. That again, the fact that he can do it is what you are chasing with these quarterbacks. And I think the completion percentage will bump up. I don't think he's ever going to be a 68% guy, but at least get over to that low 60 mark as they kind of figure out what works for him outside of just launch it, which is going to, have some lower completion percentage. Okay, going on to another big arm quarterback that I'm a fan of. Drake Maye had his second start, this one in London against the Jaguars. Producer Stone, I think, put this one in. He just put Drake Maye ? Are you buying or selling Drake Maye? I see, Matt. Let's just make it simple. Buying or selling Drake Maye?
Oh, I'm buying Drake Maye, man. Listen, I don't know if I'm buying the ceiling of him long-term, stuff like that. We're obviously still in discovery mode with that. But what we can definitely sell on, Nate, is the idea that this guy was years and years away. I mean, you can't throw this guy on the field for seasons. And I know how you feel about this, so I'm saying it so that you don't have to say it for the 50th time or whatever in the last 2 weeks. But yeah, man, to me, watching him play, especially because I was familiar a lot with him from 22, watching him with Josh Downs and stuff like that. And I just thought he was a really good decision maker, a really accurate passer when there are windows available, and just a guy that the game never looked too big for him. Like, that's the thing that I really liked about Maye working with Josh Downs. And I always said this a lot with Drake Maye. There must have been no bigger like quarterback that experienced whiplash more than my number one receiver is Josh Downs this year to my number one receiver is Tez Walker in the next year. And that was only for half the season. So I do think he definitely got a little unfairly maligned because I didn't think there was anything like traits wise, or certainly not traits wise, but even like skill set wise, like applicable skill sets to the game, that there was a reason why he just couldn't function on the field as a rookie or something like that. And I think we've gotten a really good product the last 2 weeks. I think that has been borne out. Is it perfect? Definitely not. Does he make some questionable decisions? Certainly. Is there a lot of pressure? Does he sometimes make it a little bit worse? Yeah, but at the same time, you also see his creation ability add layers to this offense that were just simply never going to be there with Jacoby Brissett. Obviously, I think that seems like a ridiculous discussion. I almost kind of wish at this point, because I know you and I kind of like Jalen Polk a little bit. I've been really confused that the two things I really loved about Polk were that he had really good hands and he was kind of a grinder in the run game, and his blocking sucks and his hands suck.
What
in the
is
NFL.
going on? I was like, if you don't catch the ball, at least block, because that's I'm like going to you like a Diet Coke Chris Godwin, man. You better you gotta amp this up a little bit.
and now you're kind of hearing, the reason I bring Polk up is you're hearing Drake Maye kind of in interviews talk about like, it's on me to like get these guys in the flow of the game and all this stuff. And you're almost just like, damn, I wish you could have been doing this since, I don't know, week one, right? Like maybe we could have been building up chemistry with these players since week one. I don't love the way they've used Polk. He's been mostly like a vertical X, which is just not his game at all. Nope. I know they don't have a real X on the roster, but yeah, I'm buying Drake Maye for sure, and I'm almost just like wishing I had seen him earlier in the season so that he could build up more timing chemistry with these receivers instead of like, it's already a problem. It was going to be a problematic room no matter what, and now your second round pick is like actively a negative player in the offense and seems pretty pissed about his role. He's throwing up like the deuces on Instagram. Don't even know what that's supposed to mean. But yeah, I wish we had seen Drake Maye earlier, because I think he's added a lot here and should only continue to improve.
Yeah, it's exactly kind of how I pictured his rookie season to being so far, which is big plays, a couple things he gets punished for when he's trying a little too much. But I always thought his mental side was long underrated. Like that's what blew my mind when so many people are like, oh, he can't play right away, you got to sit him. Usually with guys like that, it's because the mental side isn't there to the physical gifts. A guy coming out of Wyoming like Josh Allen again, or other kind of project quarterbacks, I hate comparing him to such an outlier, but I'm just it's hard. But with Maye, I saw him handling blitzes, progressing on plays, and that's where he bounces a little too much in the pocket, but he also like mitigates a lot of pass rush that he's getting too. So that's why those arguments never stacked up to me. I got that you like don't want to quote unquote damage them, but again, these guys need reps. If you say they need experience and you don't play them, like, I don't know, that never correlates with me. It's game reps. It's not just practice reps, game reps. It turns out week one might've been the best way to play, or best time to play him, because that Bengals defense turns out, one of the worst in the league. that might have been a pretty good one to go against in your first experience. But I'm buying them all the way. There's nothing that's dissuaded me from like how high I was in the draft process. Because you see the first touchdown against the blitz and the Jags, which I was talking to Deontay Lee about. It was that like kind of a weird time to call that blitz too. But he not only identified where the weakness was, he didn't replace the blitz. Technically, he did, but he didn't. He didn't replace the blitz, but he knew that the dropper was going to come across the formation. That's a common blitz Nielsen would run, defense coordinator for the Jags. Can't believe I'm bringing up his name right now after how this year's gone. But he hits the flat route. That's my coldest take of the offseason. But he hits that flat route, and yeah, it's a short route that Hasty makes a nice play, scores a touchdown on. But he got there so quick, it gives the back room to operate. So that to me was mental side, that he was able to, blitzer going right there. I'm not just going to the opposite side, which is where his technical hot answers were. So it was kind of a nice layered play, mental layered play, I should say, to see out of him. A couple of plays that people highlighted, the Hunter Henry sail route, that he pins it on him. I would even say he almost had a pick in the red zone, in the end zone, where he hits Cisco in the chest. and he was trying to hit, but what he was trying to do is make Austin Hooper settle. And he was trying to pin, they call it an anchor ball. So he's trying to anchor him and body him up. And Hooper's like, nope, I'm running my rep as it's drawn. Okay, there we go. So again, it was a mistake. Maye was trying to do a little too much. But to me, I'm like, oh, that's good, though, that he's not going, I just throw it because that's how it's drawn. No, you have to throw guys open. And that's why I really like him anyways, because he does that. And so you're seeing it a little bit so far. Yeah, I just want to see him keep playing. The Jalen Polk thing, Pop Douglas is probably their most explosive receiver, and he's a slot guy. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of like, all right, well, do we switch him out outside so we just get Polk to do dirty work 5-yard routes, or do we get some, I get that conundrum that they probably are going through trying to figure out. But again, a team that I want to see him take a deep breath, reconfigure some things. It's all promising, I think, so far from Maye. And even just me, even if I were neutral on it, we're so high on him in the draft, I'd say if you're a Patriots fan, this is what you can hope. There's going to be some mistakes, but there's going to be plenty of explosive plays. Like even at the end of the game, it wasn't him, they're losing 2 scores or more. It wasn't him just going like, oh, I'm going to check it down because it's there. It was him trying to attack downfield because he realized I need 30-yard gains to get my team back in the game. I just really like that. Also, I'm a little disappointed in Bill Belichick and his pot shots he keeps taking at the Patriots and Mayo and everything. And I'm just waiting for somebody on one of his 14 shows to go, hey, how come the offensive line, the offensive personnel is why it is? Like, what? Can we talk about that?
Yeah.
Is anyone going to ask him?
I just said the same thing on, not quite the same thing, but basically the same thing on my show today, on the fantasy show, where it's like, I do feel bad for Gerard Mayo that I'm not saying they've been perfectly well coached this year. I do think we'll get to a point, whether it's next year or the year after, whatever, when I think Maye is holding this job down, we're like, yeah, is Alex Van Pelt like really enough at offensive coordinator? Right. Do we need to do something other than just 40th or 50th percentile at best offensive design and play calling and the whole thing? He's fine.
He's getting a C. He passes, exactly. But yeah, he's going to get his degree.
We could do better. Yeah, we don't. Yes. We're not trying to C's get degrees Drake Maye here. We're trying to get him to the inner circle, all that stuff. I think we'll eventually get to that point. I'm not saying that they've been perfectly well coaches here, the whole thing, but I do feel bad for Gerard Mayo, Hampton VA's finest, that like the guy that he is replacing is on like 14 shows and has a thought on everything. That's kind of he's already in a tough spot anyways, because he's replacing the greatest coach of all time. But yeah, it would be nice if somebody was like, hey Bill, like why is the receiver room so like, why do we have to rely on all these rookies? Why is Pop Douglas like the best player that you've drafted? Like, hey, that guy Juju Smith-Schuster that you signed as opposed to Jacoby Myers, like, why doesn't he play for this team anymore? Right. What's going on there?
Probably could use him, huh? Yeah.
Well, I mean, shoot, they could use him, but that was a tough move at the time. But
yeah. Well, and even guys like, he's been injured, so it's not totally fair. But like a guy like Cole Strange, he drafted probably 2 rounds too early. Like I remember when he got drafted. Like Dane Brugler and I were talking about it. And he was like, oh, kind of saw him late second at best, because he was an interesting guy, good athlete, smart and everything, just a small school guy. That was a reach. He drafts Tyquan Thornton, probably a round or 2 too early. Just all these picks. And it's just also like this. All right, they're struggling on offense and it's all your players too, man. Like, I don't know. Why aren't we talking about this? Like, if you want to be GM de facto boss of everything, you got to take ownership of the offense. And also the special teams has improved since Belichick has left too. So he always took pride in it. They were dead last the last 2 years, and now they're actually solid. So that's another thing. But sorry to call it the best coach of all time, but I'm just waiting for someone to ask him about it. Come on, I want to hear some quotes about why is offense like this right now. So.
Yeah, Bill, come on. You got time clearly. Come on, Football 301, and Nate will grill you about your offensive play, your offensive personnel picks.
He'll bring up some story from 1987 about my dad, and I'm like, oh God, like what I mean? Like where he'll just get me, he'll own me on something.
Yeah, I mean, you're asking for it, but for sure.
I am. All right, we are going to take a quick break after that, and then we're going to come back with some more buying and selling of NFL stories. All right, we are back for some more buying, selling, maybe some hedging, if we feel like it. But going on to the NFC now, going to the Bears and Caleb Williams. But our line, or what are we buying or selling, is the Bears offense is about to start soaring. Their next 3 games are against the Commanders, the Cardinals, and the Patriots. So, Matt, are you buying or selling that the Bears offense is starting to roll?
I am buying this. They obviously are coming off a big performance against the Jacksonville Jaguars in London before the bye. So I think, and we have talked about this a lot, that I think you can map steady improvement throughout the course of Caleb Williams' season from a outright disastrous week 1 showing to what I thought was a really, other than the one interception to DJ Moore when he was I think the only guy in the route, and just, man, that should have been his 5th, 6th touchdown of the day. And it was not. It was obviously the interception. I think other than that, it was a pretty flawless performance against a horrible Jacksonville defense. I thought it was interesting from Next Gen Stats, Caleb Williams has completed 34 of his 47 attempts towards in-breaking routes, so in slant, post, angle, cross. His plus 28.4 EPA on such attempts is the 3rd most in the NFL, and he's got 10.8 yards per attempt when targeting in-breakers this season. That's the most among rookie quarterbacks since 2018, which I think makes the point here. Again, this is something we've discussed a lot this year, Nate, that they haven't really tried to Mickey Mouse or hold his hand, hey, just dip your toes in and ease into the water. No, they've been hey, go diving board off the freaking deep end over here and sink or swim, baby. And I think he is really starting to swim, is Caleb Williams. And that's important. Do we want him to come out and just start putting up bull numbers to start the year on, fake Mickey Mouse stuff? That would be awesome if that's how Caleb Williams started, because we want that. We want the microwave results, but they've clearly been trying to cook something for the long term here. And I know Shane Waldron takes a lot of crap. I've definitely given Shane Waldron a hard time, but I will also give him credit for cutting out the fat of this offense. They tried to do so much to start, which again, I think is part of the process here. We're trying to figure out, what do you like, Caleb? What works in our offense? We pretty quickly figured out the DeAndre Carter plays don't work. The DeAndre Swift option routes don't work. The Gerald Everett screens, those don't work. Well, again, we got to credit a coach for figuring it out on the fly. In terms of weeks 5 and 6, DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, Rome Odunze, and Cole Kmet ran a route on 50% of Williams' dropbacks. No other wide receiver saw the field on passing plays. They're not even running routes out there. We have cut the fat out, and it's just those 3 receivers, Cole Kmet, a little sprinkling of Everett, Mercedes Lewis, DeAndre Swift screens, and I think we've really got our guys here involved. And I really loved what I saw in the last 2 games, and it's a pretty interesting schedule for them coming up. They get Commanders, they get the Cardinals, and they get the Patriots. So some pretty fascinating matchups for that offense too.
Yeah, I'm buying this. Their use of personnel, like you said, they trimmed the fat, and no, obviously, honestly, you just laid it all out perfectly. Is that they were kind of trial and error. We got a lot of guys that we know are good, but we also have guys that we're trying to figure out how to include in this offense, who are our auxiliary pieces. But yeah, everything you said about the mental side and what they put on Caleb's plate is just, it's paying dividends. They use tempo a good amount, a 3rd most snaps out of tempo this year, but it's not just a tempo to make the defense basic, which is a little bit of that, but it's truly letting Caleb, dictate the play. It's not just speed. Tempo. Every time I say tempo and tweet it, someone goes, tempo is just one thing. You can have slow tempo too. You should say up tempo when you say this. Tempo to me is just a hanging huddle, no huddle in some way, shape, or form. That's what tempo means to me and every other person that's involved with football. So with tempo is they will get to it and they let Caleb have the full menu. It's not just one play that we're getting too quick. It's truly letting him signal, dictate what's going on, get the offensive line set, get to protections. He's handled the protections since week 1, which is still astounding to me that he has full control of the offensive line. That is, I can't emphasize how unheard of that is with a rookie quarterback, especially with a team that's no, we want to win this year a little bit too. We want to make a run for the playoffs. So that is why you can see that the physical stuff and what they're using is catching up to what he's mentally capable of, which is a lot. But they're using all this tempo stuff. And against the Panthers, it was such a great sequence. They went empty on 4 or 5 straight plays in a series, and every single one, Caleb signaling what to get to. And then boom, it's just efficiency, just nice, efficient, moving the ball. I think he hit 3 different receivers on the sequence. Their dropback success rate out of tempo is pretty high. It's over 50%. That's good. It's not cheapies. It's true drop back stuff and true him making decisions. So the combination of, like you said, just you mentioned they went from receiver screens to DeAndre Swift screens. Sounds like a simple tweak. It's a good tweak. Hey, let's get the guy that's good at these to do the good thing, and let's get what we're bad at and chop that out. And I know that sounds nice and simple. It's really hard for coaches to do that midstream when they don't usually get a bye week. So I commend Shane Waldron for doing that, but Caleb has just been, really impressive to me in how he's handled all of the NFL stuff. He has never, ever looked overmatched mentally or physically. He's tried a couple things in the early weeks. The Texans game stands out to me. He hasn't really gotten caught on that yet. You mentioned the one with the Jags. I understood why you went there. Like, it wasn't like a bad decision. He was a little late on it. Coach maybe, throw a little bit more of a line drive. That's a physical thing, not a mental thing. And so we know his physical gifts. We've seen he has a great arm. He is great at creation, but the fact that he's kind of the complete package, it's really cool. It's really good stuff. Their run game is now, they've chopped some fat out of that too, getting more backs involved, getting Roschon Johnson in there, kind of take some of the dirty work stuff. That helps as well. So I'm buying that they're going to be on the upswing the next few weeks. Like they're a pretty solid offense, and I think they're only going to get better as they figure out everything. And Caleb is a big part of that. And shoot, you mentioned how they use Roman Dunze over the last few weeks, and now that they're getting play out of him. It's good stuff. Good stuff.
Even Keenan Allen, and I've been hard on Keenan Allen the last few years because I think he's his stats are better than his actual individual play. But he's had 10 first read targets according to Fantasy Points data, who they track this stuff over the last 2 weeks, last 2 games, excuse me. And I think 3 of them were end zone targets and 4 of them were on 3rd or 4th down. So that's where you want to use him. And short, quick hitting routes. We don't want him to be, I don't think we need him to be the downfield first read. And we saw a lot of that in week 1. Again, trimming out the fat here. We don't need him doing that stuff, but if it's quick hitting stuff, we're in stacks and bunches. I mean, even the touchdown throw, I think it was Keenan Allen's first touchdown where he just placed it perfectly on the shoulder there over the middle. It's that is such high level quarterback stuff. And even if Keenan Allen has taken a step back, few receivers in the league are more technically proficient to time that up with. So again, we've just seen a lot of really high level stuff, both from Caleb Williams, of course, but I'll give a little bit of praise to Shane Waldron, who gets a lot of crap out there.
Yeah, it's tough in Chicago there. It's Keenan Allen slotting to, no pun intended, but slotting to more of the third option. That's how you use him. I know the stats were good last year, but again, it was the Sharif Abdul-Rahim with the Hawks stats, where there's a lot of empty calories in that Chargers offense. So oh man, we can continue to talk about the Chargers and their pass catchers later. But it's just getting, and this is just good coaching. It's just get your guys what they're good at, but let them do that and limit the things that they're bad at right now. That, I know that sounds hard or sounds too easy. I don't know how you want to say it, but this is what they're doing, and it's working right now. Going to another rookie quarterback and who the Bears are playing this week. I might be writing about this week, depending on the quarterback's health. And that is the Commanders and Jane Daniels. Matt Harmon, are you buying or selling the Commanders offense, this kind of historic rate offense that they're at right now? And just in general, do you think they can keep the good times going? Jane Daniels, I might add, has a rib injury. He's week to week right now. So hopefully he comes back this week. I was pretty excited to see this offense against the Bears defense. But are you buying or selling the Commanders so far?
Ooh,
I know this is a tough one.
What is the price tag that I'm paying here? Basically, am I buying that they're the best offense in the league? Am I buying that they're a playoff team? Am I buying that this team is better than expected? Definitely buying that they're better than expected. And I think this is not fluky nonsense stuff. There's really good, fundamentally sound things in this offense. I think their run game is just a treat to watch when they have Brian Robinson out there. I know that we just want to pretend that we can take a running back in and just plop in anybody back there. Just throw anybody. It's damn, Brian Robinson rocks. That guy is a badass. Such a big time bruiser, and he runs a lot of these concepts that they want to a high efficiency level. He brings an attitude. He brings a tempo to the run game that, Austin Eckler at this point in his career, and really, Austin's not that type of back. And Jeremy McNichols, who somehow I didn't even realize was in the league until he popped up with this team. I was oh man, McNichols is still around. I remember dynasty rookie drafts with him feel like 100 years ago. A lot of debates about old Jeremy McNichols. So he's not going to bring that to the dimension either. So having Brian Robinson healthy, I do think is kind of like a little bit of a straw that stirs the drink for what's a well-designed Commanders run game. Obviously, Terry McLaurin rocks. I still feel like they need another threat in this passing game for me to really think like I am buying them at their peak efficiency value that they're at right now. Because I just think some good teams will eventually be able to not blot it. I mean, I think the Ravens result was a perfect example. Yeah. That's a defense that probably not as good as we want it to be, but still is I think, quality overall unit with really good players. And they didn't get smoked by the Ravens by any means, but it wasn't the same just like fireworks bombs away show that we've seen previously. I feel like I'm buying the unit at that level. I'm not buying that it's a fluke. I'm not buying it at its peak efficiency, or excuse me, I'm not selling it as a fluke. I'm not buying it as peak efficiency. I'm buying it kind of somewhere in the middle here.
Yeah, that I know. That's my cop out too, is that they're way better than I was expecting, especially year one with this. And definitely Cliff Kingsbury has improved on a lot of stuff that was kind of his negatives before, kind of static formations, guys are lined up in the same spots. The use of personnel has been very creative. I also think that it's kind of nice seeing the spread super tempo heavy offense. They have, oh man, what I looked up, 227 snaps out of tempo this year outside the 2 minutes of the half. So no 2 minute drill. The Seahawks are next highest at 107.
Fast tempo or slow tempo? No, I'm just kidding.
Just tempo. No, yeah, yellow light tempo. No, 227 snaps out of it. The Seahawks have their second highest at 107. The league average is 39. So they're in their own zip code with how much they use tempo. And what's been cool though, it's not tempo and lining up the same formation and you run 4 plays out of it, or doing what, the Bears do. They're able to get to a lot of stuff out of tempo. And that's what's been fascinating to me, that they're able to get to a lot of different formations and some different concepts, nothing crazy, but a large variety of concepts. And that's what's given defenses issue. How many defenses are so blitz happy right now, or simulated pressures, creepers, doing a lot of funky stuff and a funky moving? They make defenses basic. So even if you have like a tell on them, oh shoot, they're winding up, cover 3. So I'm Jane Daniels. I get back there. I'm like, all right, this is nice and easy. Spot drop cover 3 or spot drop cover 2 or man, or they have a bust and we could take advantage of it. They had a great moment against the Ravens doing that to Austin Eckler on the wheel route. But I also think some of the designs from Kingsbury, he's doing a lot of overloaded formations, a lot of 4 strong stuff. And I think probably more than anyone in the league right now. And those are just nice designs. Like, it's just nice little simple twists, nothing crazy with the concept, but the window dressing of the formation is the good stuff. And I'm glad you brought up the offensive line. That's been the most surprising element of this team in a positive way. They're punching way above their weight, and credit to their line. And sometimes having a solid center like Biotish helps, just to get everyone set. And then, Bobby Johnson, offensive line coach, he got kind of, kicked out of New York last year after all the injuries they had with the Giants. They're just doing a nice, solid job. Like, again, it's nothing revolutionary, but it's sound. And they're pretty good in pressure rate. They're good running the ball. You mentioned with Brian Robinson. So I also think the type of personnel they go after now they have this year, has worked for what they're doing. Meaning more dirty work guys. More Zacchaeus, Luke McCaffrey, even Scary Terry's a good dirty work guy, even though you don't always want him doing it. John Bates, their other tight end, is a good dirty work guy. That is a difference to me than his being Cliff Kingsbury's Arizona personnel, which was, I'm trying to think of a good word here. Smurfs.
It was Rondale Moore.
Yeah. There one time I took a picture of their receivers and it was 5'7", 5'8", 5'9" were the 3 listed receivers on the field. And then now you get this offense that has a bunch of guys. So if we run a bunch of bubbles like they like to do, or receiver screens, get some guys that can scrap and make it a little better than, the Smurfs that they had in Arizona.
Yeah, Rondale Moore blocking for Greg Dortch, or Marquise Brown blocking for Rondale Moore.
Yes.
Like that's a lot of
not what you want.
Smaller fellas.
Which it's funny because I'm sure Cliff Kingsbury in his air raid brain, he's like, that's what we need. We need all these guys that can run crossers and quick routes. And then it's in the NFL. He's probably like, the size actually helps. It's kind of a twisted thinking, but it actually works because those are bigger bodies for you to target and to block and everything.
Yeah,
so
size of players gets bigger, size of field gets smaller when you go from college football to the NFL. I feel like the math is starting to math for old Cliff here.
And when everybody in the NFL is fast, That's another thing. That's
Rondale Moore, fastest player on the field at Purdue in 2018 or whatever it was his rookie year, and then
because you mentioned a bunch of DBs that run the exact same 40 and are bigger. Yeah, that's the difference too. So yeah, I'm not saying that they're going to be the number one offense that we've seen in 20 years. I think they're like way up there in EPA and success rate and everything, but they're not like a bottom 12 offense that I maybe thought they would be before the season. But I think they're going to finish top 10, like, because they have answers. They're not going to play a bunch of hard defenses throughout the rest of the year. So I'm buying this a little bit that this is more real than the offense. It's not smoke and mirrors, as I think. And Jane Daniels is operating it very well. He doesn't make a lot of mistakes. So hopefully he comes back healthy, because
are we buying at all the fact that the defense is number one in dropback EPA allowed in the last 4 weeks? I mean, I know typically when anyone talks about the Commanders, it's like offense great, defense still sucks. But they've faced the Panthers last week. I get that. They've faced the Browns 2 games before that. That also helps. But like, they've got the Cardinals in there. They've got the Ravens in there. So again, number one in dropback EPA. Now their run defense is still a problem statistically, but are we buying any of that at all? That this actually maybe could be a little bit more of a balanced team than just, offense great, defense real bad?
No, I think the defense is really bad.
Okay.
I think some of the opponents, like even first drive on Sunday, the Panthers were marching on them, and then they got the pick on the screen.
Oh,
So not even just a pick six on a screen. Like, that's kind of, they rely on turnovers. Like, that's just how they have to win. Like, if you don't have defensive personnel, you have to win with turnovers, because otherwise you're just getting punched in the face 60 times in a row. So I think they can maybe do that sometimes, but if they don't, I think it's going to be hard for them, especially if you can't stop the run, because I think some teams will try that. Maybe the Bears this week. We'll see. I'm excited for this game, though. Commanders and Bears. I might be writing about it this week. That's why I really wish Jaden Daniels was healthy, because just took an article idea away from me if he's not playing. So hopefully he comes back healthy, and for other reasons than that. But all right, we're going to take one last break, and we'll come back with a few more storylines that we are buying and selling. Okay, we are back. On to Cliff Kingsbury's former team, Arizona Cardinals, and a particular receiver that is not 5'8" or 5'9", not a Smurf. He is very big, but has had some disappointing stat lines recently. That is Marvin Harrison Jr., number 4 overall pick. Yardage totals in the last 4 games, 45, 36, 0. They get a concussion that game, didn't he? 21. Is it time to panic? Is it buying? How about this? Buying or selling that it is time to panic? That's such a weird way to phrase it, but we're going to go with that.
Yeah, I'm selling panic, but I am I'm buying concern, if that makes sense. So, and less, I mean, I don't think Marv has been perfect. Okay. I think like this is one of those things where it's really frustrating in this is probably true in all walks of life. It's probably true in all sports, but it's definitely true in football that people don't want to just accept that sometimes both things can be true. Like, has Marv left plays on the field? Yes, absolutely. Like, if you watch him play, like, he's definitely lost some battles at the catch point that he should win. Should he have caught that 4th down, on the last drive, or not 4th down, but on the final drive in the 2-minute drill? Should he have caught that pass along the sideline? Yeah, he should have not like left his feet and like tried to body catch it, like just catch a thing clean, go out of bounds. Like, we keep this thing moving, and maybe this is the Marvin Harrison Jr. legacy drive or something like that. And instead it's just drops pass, gets banged up, gets hit pretty hard, and then they get a penalty, they keep the drive moving, the Cardinals win the game, whatever. But that's what he's going to be remembered for. So he's left those plays on the field, but also like the Cardinals have definitely not helped him from a usage perspective. I cannot remember 2 color commentators like actively slamming a coach for a player usage harder than Louis Riddick and Dan Orlovsky. They were at Drew Petzing and the Cardinals coaching staff from the moment go. And even to the point, sometimes they're like kind of pointing out, oh yes, you look at Marv, like the effort's not really here on this play. Like, they got to get him going. They got to feed him. It's like, I mean, how are we in this situation with the 4th overall pick when we're talking about like, and a guy that was a pro ready player for sure, but we're at a point where like, is he asking questions about, is he disengaged because of the usage and the lack of targets early in the game? It was crazy. I mean, again, they were they were highlighting him just so we could see him run wind sprints down the damn field. I had I quote tweeted the stat from Seth Walder where going into this game, he had the players that had the longest, that were farthest downfield within 3 seconds of the play. And I mean, Marvin Harrison Jr. is up there with all the sacrificial X receivers in the league. To put the point of the stat, Alec Pierce is number 1 in this stat. Marvin Harrison and Alec Pierce should not be in the same area here. They definitely do not do anything to get him schemed looks, layups. I mean, how about a freaking in-breaker every now and again instead of just goes and deep hook routes. So I don't think Marv's been perfect. I don't think the tape has been great or anything like that, but I also think that we're at a both things are true here, which does have me kind of a little bit concerned at this point.
Yeah, his 2 most common routes this year from Next Gen Stats: 44 go routes, 30 hitch routes.
Oh, it sucks. It sucks.
That's not him. He's 6'3" and big, but he's Marvin Harrison Jr. What do you think his skill set's going to be? I'm Marvin Harrison's son. I think, that's a route runner. That's a guy with in-breakers. That's a guy, he's more finessey than you would think. But that's the thing, is he has the full route tree. They're running him like no offense to the guy, but like a DeAndre Hopkins. That's a dunk artist, a bully at X that wins one-on-ones through sheer force and sheer power. And Marvin Harrison Jr. is a slasher. He's a guy you want on the move because he's so big and so fluid on his route running. So the fact that I'm high on Petzing, I still am. But that's the thing, is this has been disappointing to me, and something we've talked about since week 2. And I mean, I feel like this is our 6th Marvin Harrison Jr. segment, which isn't a good thing.
Not a good thing.
We keep talking about him. It's not a good thing. And I will say the biggest negative is the catch point stuff, and that seems very real. And you mentioned it, that it was an observation from Waldman, right?
Matt Waldman. Yeah.
Yep. And I think there is some truth to that. But again, it leads to more of his finesse-y type of ways that he wins. So I do think that's been the biggest negative. But I will say the route running's there. He's getting open when he does have in-breakers. When he's a true X, this offense is old school. They'll do a lot of trips formations where he's the true X, and he's running a backside dig where he's third in the progression. That this is me talking out both sides of my mouth. That's good offense because it's a good structure, but also put Michael Wilson at that X and then Marvin Harrison Jr. over as the Z, if that's going to be the concept, because they both can do it. They're both big bodies. They should be more interchangeable. To me, it's we've talked about this. They're trying to make them do all the hard stuff, which I appreciate, but I also want, you can give them some layups. You don't have to make them go iso ball and shoot 18 footers every time and win one-on-one. You want to get them to be that, year 2, year 3, but all right, let's still get some cheapies in there. Still get some of these, quick hitting routes that maybe he can get to, some crossers, some other things where he's on the move, running away from guys. You get the ball in his hands and let him go. Just the route concepts that he's being put on. It's traditional, and there are positives to that. That is going to pay dividends. But also you need to help your guy out. So again, I'm talking on both sides of my mouth about it. So I'm with you that not selling that he's a bust and this is it. But there's a little bit of, I am buying that there are some concerns or at least some things that leave me wanting more with not only just him, but some other parts of this offense. I thought there'd just be a little more creativity in the passing game. All the creativity seems to go in the run game and the screen game and the bootleg game. Trey McBride's got some cool stuff designed for him, but can we do that for MHJ a little bit? Just a couple times.
It was weird because obviously he was on the other side of the field, but I do get a little bit of Greg Roman vibes from this offense, where the run game is super creative. Yep. I really love what they got there, but then the pass game just feels stale, little boring, standard, little boring. I mean, Roman is a little bit more of a little bit more problematic than Petzing, but
it's his own thing. Yeah.
He's his own thing.
It feels like the worst of the Kellen Moore Cowboys offenses, where it's where sometimes you're just really
hitch route central.
Yeah, stop routes and hitch route central, and it's hard for me because this is the type of offense I was raised in, but I've realized in 2024 defenses are so good at defending this stuff now because they know it now too, and so you have to get just a little more design. You watch a Shanahan offense, some of their passing game stuff's not the greatest, but some of it's creative because they'll have the X and a 3x1 run kind of like a double breaking route, as far as he's not just a dig, he comes across the formation and now he's the number 2 on the other side of the formation. Like they're using him part of the combination as opposed to just iso ball. So that, maybe some of that, I thought they'd have more of it, but yeah, it's been pretty standard. So
think about like Browns with Joe Flacco last year too. Because I think this is obviously Drew Petzing came from Cleveland. I think there's some shared DNA here, and you do walk a real tightrope with this offense where if you have the right type of quarterback, and I don't know that Murray is the right type. I do wonder if there's a little bit of like oil, water, and what they want him to be versus what he is. Like I don't think Kyler sucks or anything, but I don't think he's been great this year. I just think he's been fine from a passing standpoint. But he definitely, like, you need if you're running this offense, you need a guy that's just going to drop back and like rip it, on these play action concepts. And I don't think Kyler is that. That's more of the Flacco thing. So is there a little bit of an oil and water here? And, you need an X like Amari Cooper who's going to run those routes and run those big in breakers like we've talked about with Amari before. And I think Marvin Harrison could do that, but it's just weird that he's not. And I'm glad you brought up Michael Wilson. Just last point on this, like I charted Michael Wilson for reception perception last year. And one of the things I thought was interesting and maybe even more like fascinated about Wilson coming in here in the final 3 games when Hollywood Brown was out, Michael Wilson in those games, he kind of just took over that X receiver role. He was, 81.8% of his snaps outside, 87.3 on the line in those 3 games. And previously he'd been doing like some big slot flanker type stuff for them. I thought like, and he, it was a little bit an up and down performance. You're maybe not using him most optimally as an X, but I think he can function out there. So it's like, yeah, why not have him be in those spots sometimes? So we're opening things up with Harrison, and maybe they do that at some point. Maybe there's a reason behind the scenes. They don't trust him to do more than just this. I don't know, but that is the open question here is why is he not being used in these ways? Is it something we don't know? Is it the coaching staff just not doing it? So yeah, I think overall a little bit concerned.
Yeah, my last stat, because it's drastic. It's just looking at the difference between maybe Wilson's usage and Marvin Harrison Jr.'s usage. So 17 of Harrison Jr.'s targets have been to a tight window this year. He has 5 catches on those. 5 for 17. 3 of them touchdowns, though. So I will say that. Wilson has only had 7 targets in tight windows. 1 reception on those. But why I'm saying that is that, like, why does he get so many open looks? Like, he has 10 targets where he's defined as open by Next Gen Stats, and Harrison Jr. has 8. And I get some of that is you go to the better receiver if he's closely covered. I get some of that, but why is he getting the design looks that are more open than Harrison Jr.? Like, and again, I do think there is some, just how they're using even the running back right now, Benson. They have some Steelers vibes to them where they go, rookies have to earn it. I think there is some of that going on there. I want to see his team post by, and I'm just going to keep saying that, but I'm not selling the team yet. They still do some stuff on offense I like, but yeah, let's see Marvin Harrison get going. All right. The Packers and their defensive improvement. Are you buying or selling how the Green Bay defense has been playing recently? Can they continue it? Maybe that's a better way to say it.
I think I'm selling on this one. Maybe you'll talk me out of it. I kind of hope you do, because I really like this team and they're so fun to watch. But I think what happened last week against the Texans was a little bit more Houston than it was Green Bay. That Houston offensive line is an issue, man.
I almost want to talk more about them than
I mean, yeah. I get it. Like, I think people still have not calibrated to who Nico Collins is. Like, he is an elite receiver. You take an elite receiver out of an offense, it's not going to look as good. Like, Nico Collins is not Justin Jefferson. He's not viewed that way, but pretty close. Like,
closer to that than like whoever, insert 15th receiver
T. Higgins.
Here.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, shoot, it's just you can't just take that. Like, you take Justin Jefferson out of the Vikings offense, you tell me what happens. Like, so I get it. That's part of this, but still, I thought that just the protection plan really left me wanting. I thought the plan against some of the blitzes was really bad, and just the play of the players too. That's got me concerned here. Like, are we past the window on Laramie Tunsil? I think the way he's played this year has definitely been problematic, and Stroud is so good in these creation moments, but he shouldn't have to be in those situations. So I don't know. Again, I'm not taking away from what the Packers did defensively. I think, Jair Alexander was clearly up for the Steph Diggs matchup, and I think he played a pretty good game.
Yeah, he's very up for it.
He was very up for it. He was very up for it. All-time line, Steph Diggs, I'm never the bigger person. Like,
oh my God. It was so
incredible
great.
Incredible stuff. But yeah, I think that they have some talent there. I've been just left a little bit wanting early in the season, but maybe this is a new coordinator. They're changing schemes here a little bit. Maybe it is going to be better in the back half of the season, but I think right now my instinct is to sell and feel like more of what they did last week was a Houston issue than a Green Bay like good thing.
Yeah, I would sell that this is like a top 10 unit, but I would buy that it's a top 20 unit, top 18, somewhere around there. Like I think they're middle tier defense. That's actually better when Quay Walker is not on the field, and that has actually helped them a little bit, that's a long conversation we need to have. Our guy just Skada thinks Quay Walker should play on the edge. So because I dropped the same theory. I was like, are they a little better when he's not out there? And he's like, yeah, they are. Not that the other linebackers are good, but at least they go in the right direction. And that's a big part about linebacker play.
Start.
And you hope a guy that played linebacker since they're 12 years old would know, to go in the right direction. But we're going to look back at those Georgia defenses and just go like, how did this work? But all the linebackers have limitations, but McDuffie and Eric Wilson are at least doing some things. Edgerrin Cooper actually is decent. Like he's been, I thought he'd take some time, but he's actually had some real moments. Our first complaint, we talked about the Brazil game in week 1 against the Eagles. Remember, we were like, the blitzes are just so boring. Everybody's just running straight ahead. They've added to it. And I will say that is where some of the improvements come. And again, this is a double-edged sword. If you want to be very gamey and twist happy and have your defensive line slanting every play, you're going to give up big runs. That is the trade-off. And what the Texans game was perfect for it was, okay, made it tough on them. Oh, there goes Joe Mixon for a big run. That's how this defense, I think, is going to be, but that's how they have to win to kind of generate some of their explosive plays for the defense. So yeah, they're middle of the pack in rushing success rate, but they've given up the 4th most explosive runs. That's what this is the formula for them. It's going to happen. And your bet is that our offense can blow the other side out of the water, that they can't run the ball anymore. And that's how this team makeup is going to be. Kind of, it's not the same style, but kind of, early Spags Chiefs teams. Really good offense, explosive offense. And then hopefully we create an explosive on the defense, but we can get popped in the face every once in a while. But they have some good scheme stuff. Rashawn Gary pressure, I tweeted it. I think a few people did, but it was really cool. The Texans did their motion, came to the line. Stroud comes up, changes the play, changes the protection, comes back, and then the Packers shifted their look, where Rashawn Gary went as an edge player, walked over the center off ball, like a true off ball linebacker, and it blitzed through the middle. And they were only rushing 4 guys on it, but it totally screwed up the Texans' protection rules, which isn't that hard to do these days. Yeah, but it's good that they're able to do it. It's so bad, man. Like that, the Texans O-line and running backs and tight end, Dalton Schultz, I'll include him on here. Where are they going over throughout the week? Like Laramie Tunsil is like turning inside when the defense, a lot of standard protection rules are, okay, 5 offensive linemen have the 4 most dangerous rushers. Or 5, it's technically 5, but the 4 down linemen. And guys could be the 2-point stance, but you're number 91 or 58 is probably 52 is going to rush the passer because that's what they typically do. Tunsil kept like turning inside when his guy is like right across from him. It was bizarre. And it happened like 3 times. And it's not just this week. It's happened like recently. It's bizarre how these guys are playing. And then the running backs are messing up. Like Dalton Schultz let a guy go on a protection that was his. It's just, so Texans O-line is just, wow. It's very, very bad as we're talking right now. But I do think that the Packers defense it's going to be boom busty against the run. And they're going to try and create turnovers, but the pass coverage is good. I like the plans that they have in pass coverage. It's a lot of cover 3 and a lot of man, but they disguise it fairly well. Xavier McKinney is playing phenomenal. So I do buy that there's improvement. I would sell that maybe it's a top 10 unit. I think that's and they're good at defending screens too. That's another random thing I'm going to throw in there. That's just another aspect for this defense. So I like the Packers and where they're sitting at. I mean, still the NFC North is just it's a bloodbath right now, how good these teams are.
They'll smoke Jacksonville in week 8. And then week 9, they'll get the Lions and, they struggle against screens and all this type of stuff. Like they get gashed in the run game. I guarantee you, okay, That's a 425 Fox game. I don't know if it's a Brady game or what. They'll go into the game being like, yeah, this Packers defense the last 2 weeks has really kicked it up. Let's throw 3 in there because the Cardinals in week 6. Yeah, last 3 weeks, things have looked really good for the Packers defense, blah, blah, blah. And then like all the ways that you just lined out that they'll struggle going into that week 9 game against the Lions, that'll get exploited.
You know who does really well against funky defenses? Yeah, the Lions.
Yeah,
they just bludgeon you. They find different ways to do it. Yeah, so that's a great point. That's so good. You're good at the narrative scouting stuff. This is your Aiden Hutchinson Defensive Player of the Year pick too. It's like you know how to get in the mind of that narrative scouting.
Yeah, I need to get a life. Clearly.
No, stay with me. Stay in the slum with me. This is great. I like it. All right, I know Stone's going to kill me. Let's just do a quick one-line buy or sell on it. Broncos run game and defense, and Broncos are a potential playoff team. Are you buying or selling that fact or that line?
Buying defense, kind of want to buy the run game.
Yeah.
And like, okay, here's the thing about them being a playoff team. My instinct originally was like, sell. And I don't know. I feel like you might sell. But then I look at the standings right now.
Yeah.
Like, you know, the thing that matters, the things that determine you getting into the postseason. You know, like, hey,
it's not as crazy.
Okay, Bengals, get your shit together. Dolphins, really get your shit together. Okay. Obviously, they're about to get Tua back. We'll see what happens. Otherwise, they're 2-4. Okay, you're in a 2-4 freaking hole. That's a little bit difficult to drag yourself out of, even if you do get your together with your quarterback back in there. Yeah, we're extra segment and we're bleep buttoning. Sorry, Stone.
It's perfect. We're near the end. That's great.
Terrific.
Get Stone working at the end.
And then the team that it's in their division. You know, that's 3-3. The Broncos are 4-3. Is the Chargers, and like, I'm watching that game last night with Justin Herbert, and I feel like Justin Herbert, especially in this Chargers offense, might as well, like, I don't know, he's in a canoe and he's got to just canoe himself down the stream, but because of the players he's playing with, and Greg Roman is his offensive coordinator, it's like someone just shot the bottom of the canoe and was like, all right, get to the other end of the stream there. Like that's what, and Herbert's like having to row down the damn river as the boat is sinking. That's what playing quarterback feels like for Justin Herbert right now. So I look at all those teams and I just think like, yeah, you know what? The Broncos are a great defense. I think their defense rules. And Javonte Williams was, maybe it's just 1 week. The Saints were packing in, but he was second in offensive success rate on his carries last week among guys with 10 plus rushes per True Media, tied with Aaron Jones. 21.4% of his rushes were for 10 plus yards. It felt like it, and I thought it was legit. They keep trying to replace him, but I don't know. Like, if you can this should be a team that just pounds the rock at this point. Yeah. So if we haven't mentioned the quarterback, and I'll leave that to you. That's your lane. You're on Bo Nick's corner there. But yeah, if like Williams and the run game can come together, the defense is good, and all these other teams in the AFC can't get their act together, why not? Why not Denver?
That's you did the exact math I did. I was like, hey, the Broncos are a great test example of like what a good defense and a good run game can still do in the NFL. I know it's a passing league and all this stuff, but you got to have a high baseline, you know, at least some baseline to lean on. And they can every week. If you're not going to have a good offense or, you know, stop the run, they're going to pound it on you and they're going to make you work at it. Or if you don't want to tackle, like the Saints defense have now just opted out of. Now you see why the Chiefs moved on from Tyrann Mathieu. It's like he's just a hell of a player, but as soon as he doesn't want to, that tackling goes, and all the guys, Taylor's weak in tackling, but that's the Broncos' identity this year. And the passing game is going to be based on how many shot plays Bo Nix can connect on. It's not going to be down to down efficiency. That's not how they're going to be built to win. Not that they should be looking at the pass catchers. And Troy Franklin hitting the receiving over.
Oh, baby.
What a tout by you.
Never felt more alive in my entire life.
Awesome. I got tagged so many times about it. I was like, hey, that was all Matt. I was with him on it. I encouraged it, but no, that was all Matt. But this is how they're going to be built to win. And I think they can hang with a lot. There's not a lot of AFC powerhouses this year. There's some good teams. Don't get me wrong. Chiefs, Ravens, Bills a little bit. But all right, who else? You know, like who else are we saying are we going to anoint? So they're as live as anybody because they have some true strengths. And now they're getting Surtain back. And man, they make it really hard on offenses. And they're going to do it every week. I'm excited for when they, you know, really play some tough offenses like their defense, because I think it's just going to be fun with what teams try to do against them. So I'm buying that they could be a playoff team. I'm liking what I'm seeing. I always love a good strong run game, and it's Sean Payton, so it's just bully ball. It's great, and I love it. And we'll see, maybe we get some other backs back there to kind of get spell Javonte Williams too. So
they play the Panthers in week 8, so they'll be 5-3 coming out of week 8. They'll be 5-3, and then they get the Ravens and the Chiefs after that. So we shall see.
So that's great. Ravens and Chiefs too both are good against the run this year, so that's going to be perfect. Like, all right, can you do this? Like, can you do this when you can't run it for 5 yards a pop? So we'll see. It's fun. All right, that wrapped it up. The last one we had is buying or selling Jared Goff MVP. I'm selling because of Lamar Jackson. So yeah.
If they didn't give it, if they didn't give it to Brock Purdy last year, they're not giving it to Jared Goff this year. Because Lamar deserves it.
Goff's playing great ball. Don't get me wrong, but I think still there's a lot of parts of that offense that make it click right now. Playing good ball though. A lot of dig routes. It's fun. A lot of over routes. I've always liked Jared Goff's game just because it's he can chuck it. He can spin it. All right. That'll wrap it up on this buy, sell, week 7 recap, whatever you want to call it, episode of Football 301. Closing it out today. Charles McDonald will be back here on Thursday to preview week 8. I'm Nate Tice. You can find me at Nate_Tice. And that is Matt Harmon. It's Matt Harmon BYB. I think I said BVB, which is a soccer team. That's Dortmund. So BYB.
Whatever.
What are you working on this week too, Matt? Where else can they find you?
Oh, yeah. You and I will be back in the fantasy film room tomorrow. Got to figure out what we are talking about this week. Because we covered a lot of ground.
Always figure it out.
We'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. Never know. Look, I just wrapped up today's podcast, like friggin' 2 hours ago. I don't know about tomorrow's podcast yet. So, but we'll be back for that. We have shows all week long. Just follow me on Twitter. We'll see what receivers I'm working on. The rookie report is coming up soon. Man. Like we're almost at that time of the year because we have a lot. And I tweeted this out. We have right now, I think 18 receivers have run 70 plus routes this year. So we're looking at a beefy bunch of rookies to chart this year. So it'll be fun.
I know. I'm trying to think any top of my head. That would be interesting. I want to see how Ladd stacks up.
Mason Tipton has run the 9th most routes among rookies. Didn't know that was true.
I didn't either.
Found that out on Monday.
All right. Follow a factoid there. I love diving into some of these stats where it's like, oh, this guy's playing a lot. Why is he playing? Oh, that happened. Okay, that's why. But also, if you have any questions for us, send it into our mailbag email, football301mailbag@yahoosports.com. We're going to try and answer one a week. Emails are great. Videos and voice notes are even better. Subscribe to us here at Football 301. Follow us, rate us, watch us on YouTube, on the Yahoo Sports YouTube channel. You can find us wherever you get your podcasts. Please rate us 5 stars if you like what you're hearing. If you don't, just say hi on Twitter or something like that. But also follow Yahoo Sports on Snapchat. Thanks to Brett Stone and Audie behind the scenes. Thanks to everybody for listening. See you guys on Thursday.